everyone. So, mid-October, here, now, probably going to be closer to late October when this is posted, but this, I want to go over how to put away your lawn equipment for the winter. Now, there's going to be two basic ideas. I'm going to assume you just have something simple like a lawnmower, a weed eater, maybe a pressure washer, leaf blower. If you have anything over that, I mean, it's more or less the same thing, but this engine process is going to be the same. So I'm going to go over the lawnmower one. This is going to be the same, like I said, for almost all of it, except for the 2 cycles. 2 cycles we'll go over separately. So first things first. I tipped this over for a little bit too long because I was sharpening the blade. I have a video on that, but when I was sharpening it, somehow or another, when I was being put back down, it fell on the other side. It was just a giant mess, and now it's leaking oil. So, perfect time to do this anyway. Let me explain why you do this now. 1, you don't want to do this in the springtime. You want to put it away clean. You don't want to take it out dirty and clean it, because that just leads to problems. So this is going to be the main part of it, and we'll get into the finer details of the lawnmower and pressure washer, and then we'll go over weed eaters and 2 cycles in general after that. So let's go ahead and get this started. So this is a Briggs & Stratton. If you have a Honda or Kohler, it's going to be a little bit different, but the principle is the same. Briggs & Stratton or Pertwort, Tecumseh, even that one's a little different sometimes. You're going to either need a 5/16. Honda's a 10mm, Kohler's a 10mm, sometimes a Phillips head for like the older ones like the Tecumsehs, but either way, get into your air filter. Briggs makes it easy. This is 1 year's use. It's a little oily in there because I tipped it over. I was, like I said, cleaning it and cleaning the blade and checking the belt and other items. So, just wipe it down. This isn't really going to be too bad if you don't. It just end up kind of ruining your filter. So over time this will get in your filter, and then oil is not easily breathable. So 1, at the very least, you'll be burning oil. 2, most likely you'll be kind of unchoked because your filter will be covered in oil. And there's more oil down here, but we're going to power wash it too after this. Throw that away. So next, air filter. These are the same for both Hondas and Briggs like this. The newer Briggs, you don't need anything. You just have to go and take off the cover and then just put a filter, and those filters are a little bit different, so find the correct filter for your model. I'm using this one. Brand new air filter in. Put the housing back together. And there you have it. Now, I don't want to say a spark plug isn't necessary, because it is. Most definitely. You need to change it quite frequently. But not nearly as frequently as an air filter. I actually just got done changing this one, but here's one. I mean, for Briggs, you just get RJ19LM. This is the Autolite, so that's just the equivalent, if you can read it right there. Hondas, the BPR6, and probably the same for Kohlers, Tecumseh's, same plug as this. So just kind of take it off and look at the numbers on the side. Usually they'll have numbers, but like I said, this is literally seconds old. I just tested it and it's fine, so that's not going to be a problem. But you do want to do that, I won't say every 2 years unless you used it a lot, in which case I would say every 2 air filters. Every 2 air filters, change your plug, unless you have a problem, of course. You can also test your plug. I have a video on that. If you just want to check it before you buy one, you can. So check that out. But let's go to the next item. Okay, next item. Oil. This is arguably probably the first or second most important thing you need to do. Take out the dipstick. This one's a little rough. I want to check it first. Now, I'm on the fence if I even need to do it, so I'm checking it. I use this very, very minimally this year, but let's find out. It's a little low, but it's not very dirty, so I'm pretty happy with that. The reason why it's not very dirty is because I probably used it a total like 3 hours this year, if that. No, probably 2. Yeah, probably 2. Very, very minimally. But I will add some, so that's not going to be a problem. Something you do want to do as well is smell it. I'll explain why. 1, it smells like burned oil. It needs a change. 2, it smells like gasoline. I don't care what color it is, change it. With the new, well, I shouldn't say new. With some engines, Honda's included, this type of Briggs, the new Briggs, pretty much any lawnmower style engine, if you have anything wrong with your carburetor, sometimes it can fill up or start to, the seats start to fail and fill the engine up with gas. That eventually will go into the cylinder, eventually go into where the oil is, thin out the oil, then you have a gas oil mix that's super thin, not providing the correct lubrication. Your cam can get damaged, your crank can start prematurely wearing down, your connecting rod, you know, all kinds of bad things. Nothing good happens. So, you don't need anything expensive. I got this at Walmart. 10W30. Change it. Hondas. When you check yours, you don't push it in all the way. You actually just put it on the top and pull it right back out. You don't thread it. But change the oil. 10W30. If you live in a warm area that you never stop mowing, you can just do 30. I don't know why. It's 10W30 is practically the same price, if not the same price. So I would say 10W30, but if you live in a cooler climate, definitely do 10W30, even if your book says 30. It's just better for your climate. And that book goes to every place in the world. So it's just best to be a little cautious on that type of thing. So I don't really know how to show this without just showing you an engine running for however long it takes to empty the gas out. But I'm gonna go over a couple scenarios. 1, you live in a cooler area and you have a plastic tank. 2, cooler area, metal tank. 3, warmer area, metal tank. And 4, warmer area, plastic tank. Pretty much, the warmer areas, you have the easy way. I also burned myself, so my hand has something weird going on there. But if you ever come to a point where you're going to put anything away for like 2 months, I kind of doubt it, but let's say it happens. Just put a clamp on your handbrake, let the engine run until it's out of gas, drain the fuel, whatever you want to do. Just get it out there and leave it dry. Put it away. Don't mess around with fuel stabilizers. I cannot stress that enough. Fuel stabilizers, in my opinion, are good intentions, but that don't work. It's like putting a band-aid on a broken leg. Yeah, you had good intentions, but did it really do anything? No, in fact, down the road, it probably was going to make things a lot worse. So, don't use fuel stabilizers. Now, if you live in an area that has non-ethanol fuel, maybe you live in a marine area, maybe you will just have a non-ethanol station that's by, I don't know. But whatever the situation is, if you can get non-ethanol fuel, fill it to the brim, leave it. Just leave it. It'll be fine. You can leave it for the whole year, start right up probably. Not going to be a problem. Now, cold areas, like where I am, if you have a metal tank, you definitely need to either get a coating in there, like a tank sealant. That'd be perfect. Ideally, you just seal all metal tanks, run it dry, and then you'd pour just a little bit of fuel in there, just enough to fill the carburetor bowl, just enough. The reason why you do that is you want to have less areas to have condensation form inside your carburetor. So you'll probably have a little bit of fuel in your tank and a little bit of fuel in your carb. That's if you have non-ethanol fuel. That's important. If you have ethanol fuel, you don't do that. You simply put the sealant in there and you run it dry. Just leave it that way. If you don't have an area, or if you can't get non-ethanol fuel, and you have a metal tank, and you can't get a sealant for whatever reason, I don't know, the next best option is to, this really isn't a good way to be honest, but the next one, fill it to the very brim, put a little fuel stabilizer, a little bit, and fill it to the very, very top. And it's going to be annoying. Every month, go out there and run it for like 15, 20, 30 seconds, just enough to get the fuel out of the carburetor. You want the fuel to just kind of constantly be refreshing. What that's going to do is going to leave the metal non-exposed. You're not going to have to worry about rust. Your carburetor is going to have fresh fuel going through it. It's going to have less stagnants problems. That's a next best option. Plastic tanks are a lot easier. Non-ethanol, don't do anything. Just leave it. Let it be. It should be fine. If you cannot get non-ethanol, run it dry and just kind of put it away. The good thing about plastic tanks is you don't have to let it rust. Now, you can get some condensation in your carburetor bowl if you are going to be mowing when it's just a little bit cool outside. Try to at least make it cool and dry. Try to get some of that condensation out of the tank. And something else you can do is take like a plastic bag and cover the tank up if you put it away when it is dry. If it's rainy and nasty, all you're going to be doing is trapping the humidity, and that's not going to help. Cool and dry, you could put a bag on there. If not, then just let it be. It's just one of those unfortunate things. There's really not a surefire, perfect way of doing it, unless you have non-ethanol fuel. If you have non-ethanol fuel, you're pretty much golden. As long as you don't leave it outside in the rain or something like that. If you're keeping it in the shed, in your garage, not going to be a problem. So that can go for a lawnmower, pressure washer, anything with that style. It doesn't even have to be a vertical shaft. It can be a horizontal shaft as well. So just know that over the winter, when it comes down to ethanol fuels, the only time you should ever be leaving it in there is if you have a metal untreated tank, you put a little bit of stabilizer in there, and you routinely go out there. Maybe if you get paid every first of the month, you do it on payday, something, at least once a month. That's the only time you should ever leave ethanol fuel in your lawn equipment. So that should be about it. The only other thing we would say to do, I have a video on it as well, sharpen your blade. That's why there's oil on mine. Check your belts if you have self-propel. And then, actually, there's one more thing. Let's take a look. So this is called a cable oiler. Basically, you just put your cable in there, squeeze these two down. That end's fat, that end's thin. That's where the actual line comes out. And then what you do is you take your oil of choice, WD-40, whatnot. Oh, here we go. Spray it in there. And hopefully what that should do is it should shove all the oil down the cable until eventually, hopefully in an ideal world, you'll see it ooze out that end. That's something you should do. The other thing you should do is, you see that grass down there? That was underneath the deck. You don't want to leave that there. Scrape that off. So that's just going to cause corrosion, smell not the greatest, and next year you'll just be spitting out nasty dried grass the first time you turn it on. It's not a pleasant look. Okay, a couple more things I should say. Next, probably should have done this before we changed the plug, but you see it has like 5 seconds of use on it. Anyway, this is going to be a little tricky. If you can get like those 3-in-1 bottles, or this is a Zoom bottle, fill it with oil, down your plug hole. I like to take a little bit of oil, just kind of shove it in there, with the plug out. Slowly pull down your brake, pull your cord, as such. Now what that does is keeps the top end oiled up, keeps the carbon kind of at bay. It helps, just makes it so it's not so hard and flaky. Next time you turn it on, you might even get rid of some of it. Coats the valves. Ideally, maybe some of it even went inside the exhaust valve, maybe on the stem, and it's coating that, even the intake possibly. We're hoping for the exhaust. The intake's not that bad usually, but the exhaust for sure. The only bad thing about this is if you put too much, you can foul your plug when you first start it, but you just clean it. You don't want to do a lot. I mean, you saw how much I put in there. Very little. Now, when you put it away, it will keep it nice and just kind of, you don't want it dry, because when you first turn your mower on, again after it's been sitting for a while, all the oil has settled. This oil obviously will be settled as well, but there will at least be oil in the front. Potentially the oil that had gone into the valve area will still be there. It will start to work its way in, burn off, won't have to be a problem. I like to do that. It's probably not necessary, but that's something I always have done. Never had a problem. Okay, so winding down at the 4 cycles. We'll do this while I put more oil in it. But if you have a pressure washer you're going to want to, got a little empty. You're going to want to get something called Pump Saver. Put a link in the description below. But you put that in the end of your pump, goes in where your hose goes in, you spray it, comes in like a little spray can, and then you keep going and then until the foam comes out the other end of the high pressure nozzle. Well, you take your hose off where your hose would go out. So that, oh my, I'm trying to multitask, I tell you. That will keep your pump nice and fresh. Seals good, just makes it a lot easier. What's that? Yeah, that's the only other thing you do pretty much for a pressure washer, minus your hoses. You want to make sure they're clean and dry before you put them away. You can pressure wash it. I would suggest pressure washing your mower and your pressure washer. I would even recommend spraying it down with a little WD-40. They do make deck coat. I've never really used it. I just kind of clean underneath the bottom, pressure wash it, spray it a little bit, call it good. It's never really seemed to be a problem, for me at least, for rust. Yeah, that's really about it for the 4 cycles. Let's go on for 2. So, for 2 cycles, it's even easier. Do basically everything I said before. Replace the plug, air filter if you need to, non-ethanol fuel if you can. Usually places like Lowe's, Home Depot, they sell these pre-made bottles that have like non-ethanol fuel. They're like $8 a quart though. But if you can, maybe get one for this occasion, put it in there, use it until you're either out or then you're about to put it away. You can fill it up, that's not a problem, it should be fine. Or just if you're going to leave just a little bit of fuel in there and it does have ethanol, let it run until it's gone. And when it's about to die, flip the choke on, off, on, off. Try to get as much fuel out of that carburetor as you can. That'll just help kind of clean it out. And then, if it has a primer bulb, press that as many times as you can. Just try to flush it. Try to flush as much of it out as you can. And just put it away. It's that simple. The fuel lines might get a little dry, but it's better to replace some fuel lines than it is to have to rebuild your carburetor, but that will take years. So as long as you do this, it's worse to have ethanol fuel in there because the ethanol will continuously eat away at it and it makes them gummy. So don't do that. But yeah, if it's a chainsaw, make sure your oiling system was working correctly, your chain and has oil and the bar is clean. If it's a weed eater, make sure the head is clean. Just give it all a one over. But that's about it. It's pretty much the same. The only real difference is you just don't really have an option. You drain 2 cycles completely. Carburetor and everything. You don't want any remnants of fuel, always as much as you can take out. Okay, well, if you found this useful, definitely subscribe. Put a thumbs up if it helped you. If you have any questions or you think you have a different idea or you do something else, you've never had a problem with it, throw it my way, we'll talk about it, maybe make a video, test it out, well, who knows. Okay, I'll see everyone later. Subscribe, have a good night.